My name is Maya, and for the longest time, my life revolved around the rumble of my old scooter, the weight of packages in my front basket, and the rhythm of ringing doorbells. Pronto deliveries, at your service. That was me, zipping through the streets of our town, Oakhaven. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills, kept a roof over my head and my little brother Leo's, and helped him with his school things. Oakhaven. Well, it was a place of routines. People were friendly, enough, but mostly kept to themselves. There was a quiet sort of loneliness I'd see sometimes, reflected in the eyes of Mrs. Petrova when I handed her her weekly grocery order, or in the way young kids would kick a stone down the same cracked pavement after school, with nowhere, much to go. The heart of our town, or what should have been, was a square, and in that square, like a missing tooth in a smile, was the old community hall. It had been closed for years, boarded up, paint peeling, garden overgrown with weeds taller than Leo. People just walked past it, a sad gray reminder of something that used to be. I'd pass it 10-20 times a day, and every time a little pang would hit my chest. I remembered stories my grandma used to tell about dances there, town meetings, kids' plays. It was where people connected. Now, it was just an eyesore. One rainy afternoon, soaked to the bone despite my waterproofs, I was sheltering under the narrow awning of Mr. Henderson's hardware store right opposite the hall. Mr. Henderson, a man whose smiles were as rare as a sunny day in November, grunted from his doorway. "Useless, the whole lot of 'em," he muttered, gesturing with his chin towards the hall. "Council says no funds, no interest. Let it rot, they say. Easier." "It's a shame, Mr. Henderson," I said, my voice small against the drumming rain. "It could be something," he snorted. "Could be a lot of things, girl. So could winning the lottery. Doesn't mean it'll happen." That night, I couldn't sleep. His words, "could be something," echoed in my head. I thought of Mrs. Petrova, whose only company most days was her cat. I thought of Leo and his friends, who played video games indoors because the park was too far, and there was nothing else. I thought of the quiet disconnect I felt in Oakhaven, a town full of people living side by side but not really together. The next morning, a crazy, impossible idea started to bloom in my chest, like a stubborn weed, pushing through concrete. What if I tried to do something about the hall? I nearly laughed out loud. Me? A delivery girl? I had no money, no connections, no experience in anything like that. People would think I was mad. Mr. Henderson would probably have a fit, but the idea wouldn't leave. It clung to me as I wove through traffic, as I handed over parcels, as I shared a quick sandwich with Leo at lunchtime. "Leo," I said tentatively, "what do you think about the old community hall?" He shrugged, mouth full of cheese. "It's just there. Kinda spooky." What if it wasn't spooky? What if it was like a place for everyone, for kids to hang out after school, for older folks to have tea, maybe even movies? Leo's eyes lit up a little. Like a youth club? And for old people too? Something like that, I said, my heart thumping a bit faster. The first person I really talked to about it was Mrs. Petrova. I'd brought her parcels, her groceries for years. She had kind eyes and always offered me a cup of tea, which I usually had to decline because of my schedule. This time I accepted. "Mrs. Petrova," I began, stirring sugar into the floral teacup. "I have this idea about the old hall." I laid it all out, my fledgling dream of a place where people could gather, share, learn, a place to chase away the loneliness. She listened patiently, her gaze soft. When I finished, expecting her to gently tell me it was a nice thought, but impossible, she surprised me. "Maya, dear," she said, her voice a little quivery. That sounds like a wonderful dream, a light in the dark, but it would be a very big job. They've said it couldn't be done for years." I know, I mumbled, deflating a bit. They all say that. And they are often wrong, child, she said, a spark in her eye. But you would need help. And permission. Permission. That meant the town council. My stomach did a little flip. The council was notoriously slow, bureaucratic, and, as Mr. Henderson had pointedly reminded me, not interested. The next day, I dressed in my cleanest, though still slightly oil-stained jeans and my least faded t-shirt, and walked into the town council office. The receptionist, Ms. Periwinkle, looked me up and down over her spectacles. "Delivery for?" she asked, her voice crisp. "No, Ms. Periwinkle. I wanted to talk to someone about the old community hall." She raised an eyebrow. "The derelict. Fun? What about it?" "I want to reopen it." A small silence. Then a sigh that seemed to carry the weight of all the town's forgotten projects. "Young lady, that hall has been discussed and dismissed countless times. There are no funds. It's structurally unsound. It's a debt issue. But what if," I persisted, my voice trembling slightly, "what if we could raise the funds? What if volunteers could fix it up?" She gave me a pitying look. "That's very optimistic. Who is we?" "Well, me, and hopefully others." She directed me to Mr. Grumbles, at least that's what I called him in my head. His real name was Mr. Davies, head of community resources, a title that seemed ironic. He listened with a bored expression, tapping his pen. "Look, Miss Maya Rossi." "Miss Rossi, it's a nice sentiment, truly, but it's not feasible. Liability issues, structural reports costing thousands, zoning regulations. It's a hornet's nest. We simply don't have the manpower or the budget to even consider it. They've all tried before, you know. Good people, with more resources than than you." He didn't say delivery girl, but it hung in the air. I left feeling like a deflated balloon. They said it couldn't be done. The words echoed Ms. Periwinkle's, Mr. Henderson's, even Mrs. Petrova's gentle warning. For a few days, I just did my deliveries, the weight of their dismissal heavier than any package. The hall looked even sadder, more dilapidated. Maybe they were right. But then, I delivered a birthday cake to little Timmy down the lane. His mom looked exhausted. "He's got so much energy," she sighed, "and nowhere to burn it off safely around here." And I saw Mrs. Petrova, sitting alone on her porch, watching the world go by. And I saw Leo, listlessly scrolling through his phone. The spark reignited. Stubbornness, maybe. Or just a deep, unshakable feeling that this was important. I started small. I made a flyer. "Let's bring Oakhaven Hall back to life," it declared in slightly wobbly handwriting. I drew a little picture of a smiling sun over a not-so-dilapidated hall. I talked about a place for everyone. At the bottom, I put my phone number and a plea. "If you think this is a good idea, let me know. Let's talk." I printed 100 copies at the library, using my lunch money. Then, on my delivery route, I slipped them into letterboxes, handed them to people I knew, pinned one, with Mr. Henderson's grudging permission, after I bought a box of his most expensive nails, on the notice board outside his shop. The first call was Leo. "Hey Maya, cool flyer. Can I help?" My heart swelled. The second was Mrs. Petrova. "Maya, dear, I've been thinking. I can't do much heavy lifting, but I make a very good pot of tea, and I know a lot of people who might be persuaded by a good cup and a chat." Then a few hesitant calls. Old Mr. Fitzwilliam, who used to be a carpenter. "Reckon I could look at the woodwork, see what's what." Sarah, a young mom who was a whiz at organizing. "I can help with planning, maybe some fundraising." A couple of teenagers, bored and looking for something to do. It wasn't an avalanche of support, but it was a trickle. A hopeful, precious trickle. We had our first meeting in my tiny living room, squashed between the sofa and Leo's school books. There were 7 of us, including Leo. We drank watery squash and ate biscuits. I felt nervous, out of my depth. "So," Sarah began, tapping a pen on her notepad. "First things first. We need the council's permission, even if it's just to assess the building." "They already said no," I said glumly. "They said no to you, a lone delivery girl," Sarah corrected gently. "What if they get a proposal from a community group? With a plan? With potential funding ideas?" "So we formed the Oakhaven Hall Revival Committee." It sounded grander than 7 people in a cramped living room. Sarah helped me draft a formal letter. Mr. Fitzwilliam offered to do a preliminary, unofficial survey of the exterior. Mrs. Petrova started her tea diplomacy, talking to everyone she knew. The hardest nut to crack, apart from the council, was Mr. Henderson. Every day I'd see him scowling at our little notice on his board. "Still at it, are you, girl?" he'd grumble. "Wasting your time." "It's not a waste if it brings people together, Mr. Henderson," I'd reply, trying to keep my voice cheerful. He'd just snort and go back to polishing his hammers. Our letter. To the council got a response, a meeting. This time I wasn't alone. Sarah came with me and Mr. Fitzwilliam, looking surprisingly distinguished in an old tweed jacket. Mr. Davies looked less bored, more wary. Sarah presented our case brilliantly. The community need, our volunteer base, our initial fundraising ideas, bake sales, a sponsored walk, a car wash. Mr. Fitzwilliam spoke about the hall's bones. "She's old, but she's solid in places. Needs love, not demolition." Mr. Davies was still skeptical. "And the funding for a proper structural survey? For insurance? For materials?" "We'll fundraise," Sarah said firmly. "And we're hoping for a peppercorn lease, a symbolic rent. We'll take on the responsibility." He stroked his chin. "It's still a monumental task. They've all said it can't be done." There it was again. That phrase. "Maybe they didn't have the heart of Oakhaven behind them," I said, surprising myself with my boldness. The council, after much deliberation, which felt like years, agreed. Not with a cheer, but with a reluctant, caveat-filled permission to proceed with a full structural survey, at our expense, and to begin basic clearing and cleaning of the grounds, provided we had insurance, which Sarah miraculously found a local broker to help us with at a reduced rate for community projects. They wouldn't give us the keys yet, not until the survey was done and approved, but it was a crack of light under the door. The fundraising was hard. Bake sales on chilly Saturday mornings, Leo and his friends washing cars with more enthusiasm than skill, me doing extra delivery shifts and putting every spare penny into the hall fund, an old jam jar on my kitchen counter. People were hesitant to donate much. "It's a money pit," some would say. "You'll never get it off the ground." Mr. Henderson was a constant grumpy chorus. "Seen 3 bake sales, sold 7 cakes. You'll need to sell a mountain of cakes to fix that roof, girl." But slowly, oh so slowly, the jam jar filled. Small donations, crumpled notes, coins from pensioners. Each one felt like a tiny miracle. The day we got enough for the official structural survey, I almost cried. The surveyor, a serious woman named Ms. Albright, spent a whole day poking and prodding the old hall. We waited, nails bitten to the quick. Her report was mixed. Significant work needed on the roof, some damp. Electrics and plumbing are shot. But, she added, seeing our faces fall, the main structure is surprisingly sound. It's salvageable. With a lot of work. A lot. That salvageable was all we needed. We presented the report to the council. Mr. Davies actually looked a tiny bit impressed. They agreed to a peppercorn lease. We had the keys. The first day we officially stepped inside was overwhelming. Dust lay thick as snow. Cobwebs draped like ghostly curtains. The air was musty and cold. It smelled of decay and forgotten things. For a moment, looking at the peeling paint, the broken floorboards, the sheer scale of the mess, my heart sank. They were right. A small, tired voice whispered in my head, "This can't be done." Leo, bless him, grabbed a fallen piece of wood. "Where do we start, Maya?" And just like that, the whisper faded. We started with cleaning. Armed with brooms, buckets, mops, and a lot of determination, our little group of volunteers swelled. Word had gotten around. More teenagers joined, eager for something to do. Some parents, seeing their kids involved, came too. Mrs. Petrova organized a rota for tea and sandwiches, setting up a makeshift refreshment station on a wobbly trestle table outside. Even Mr. Henderson, from his shop doorway, watched with a slightly less grumpy expression. One afternoon, he stumped over. We all tensed. "That ladder you're using," he barked at Mr. Fitzwilliam, who was trying to clear a blocked gutter. "It's a death trap. Got a better one in the shop. Bring it back when you're done." He thrust a sturdy aluminum ladder into Mr. Fitzwilliam's surprised hands and stomped off before anyone could thank him properly. It was a turning point of sorts. The work was grueling. Scraping old paint, hauling rubbish, scrubbing floors until our hands were raw. There were setbacks. A sudden downpour revealed more leaks in the roof than we thought. We discovered dry rot in a section of the floor. The jam jar emptied alarmingly, fast on basic supplies. There were days I'd finish my delivery rounds, exhausted, and then head straight to the hall to work until dark, fueled by Mrs. Petrova's tea and the camaraderie. I'd fall into bed, aching, wondering if we'd ever finish. But then, small victories would happen. A local builder, hearing about our project, offered to look at the roof at cost price for materials. A painter and decorator, retired, volunteered, to teach the teenagers how to prep and paint walls. Someone donated a load of mismatched but usable chairs. Someone else offered an old piano. The local newspaper did a small story on us. Delivery Girl rallies community to save historic hall. It brought in a few more donations, a few more volunteers. People started to see that something was actually happening. The day we painted the main hall, a cheerful sunny yellow, felt like a triumph. The space was transformed, no longer gloomy but bright and welcoming, even empty. Kids were laughing as they slapped paint on, getting more on themselves than the walls sometimes, but their energy was infectious. Mrs. Petrova brought in a vase of flowers from her garden and put it on a newly sanded windowsill. It was a small gesture, but it made the place feel alive. We still had a long way to go. The electrics and plumbing were a huge expense. But now, when we asked for donations, people were more willing. They could see the progress. They could feel the hope. Mr. Henderson started leaving out old tools he didn't need anymore near our work area. A box of screws here, a serviceable paintbrush there. He never said anything, just grunted if I tried to thank him. But one day, I saw him out of the corner of my eye, actually smiling faintly as he watched Leo and his friends carefully planting some donated shrubs in the newly cleared front garden. The biggest hurdle was the grand reopening. We needed it to be an event, to show Oakhaven what their hall could be. Sarah, with her amazing organizational skills, took charge. We planned a community fair, stalls, games, music, food. The week before, disaster struck. A pipe, one we thought was okay, burst, flooding a newly painted section of the toilets. Morale plummeted. I sat on the floor surrounded by mops and buckets, tears welling up. I was so tired. "We can't do this," I whispered, the old doubts creeping back. Mrs. Petrova put a comforting arm around my shoulders. "Nonsense, child. We've come so far. A little water won't stop us now." And she was right. Mr. Fitzwilliam knew a plumber who came out as a favor. Volunteers re-cleaned, repainted. The crisis was averted, but it was a stark reminder of how fragile our efforts were. The day of the grand reopening dawned bright and sunny, a perfect Oakhaven autumn day. I was a bundle of nerves. What if no one came? What if they still saw it as just the derelict old hall, lipstick on a pig? I stood by the newly painted blue door, a Welcome to Oakhaven Community Hub sign hanging proudly above it, hand-painted by the teenagers. Leo stood beside me, fidgeting with excitement. Mrs. Petrova was already inside, kettle on, her famous tea brewing. Mr. Fitzwilliam was checking the makeshift stage he'd built. Then, people started to arrive. First a trickle, then a stream, then a crowd. Families with kids, elderly couples, teenagers, people I recognized from my delivery route. Faces I'd never seen before. The hall, once so sad and empty, filled with laughter, chatter, music from a local band of youngsters. Kids shrieked with delight at the games. Older folks sat chatting over tea and cake, their faces animated. The air buzzed with a warmth, a connection I hadn't felt in Oakhaven before. I saw Ms. Periwinkle from the council, looking around with a surprised expression. Even Mr. Davies was there, actually smiling as he watched a puppet show with a group of children. Later, Sarah nudged me. "Go on, say something." My heart leaped into my throat. I hadn't prepared anything. I stumbled onto the little stage and a hush fell over the hall. I looked out at all those faces, hopeful, happy, connected. Hi, I began, my voice shaky. Wow. Look at this. I gestured around the vibrant room. A while ago, a lot of people, myself included sometimes, thought this wasn't possible. They said it couldn't be done. A few knowing smiles in the crowd. They said the hall was too far gone, that no one cared enough, that it was a waste of time and effort for for someone like me to even try. My voice cracked a little. But I looked around Oakhaven, and I saw people who deserved a place to come together. I saw loneliness that could be eased, and boredom that could be filled with joy and learning. I took a deep breath. This hall isn't about bricks and mortar, not really. It's about us. It's about community. And you all did this. Every cake baked, every car washed, every hour spent painting or cleaning, every penny donated, you all proved them wrong. Tears were definitely rolling down my cheeks now, but I didn't care. This is your hall, Oakhaven's heart. Let's keep it beating. There was a moment of silence, and then the applause started. It washed over me, warm and heartfelt. I saw Mrs. Petrova dabbing her eyes. Leo was beaming, giving me a thumbs up. And then I saw Mr. Henderson. He was standing near the back by the door of his shop, which he'd propped open. He wasn't scowling. He wasn't even grunting. He was clapping. Just a little, almost, shyly, but he was clapping. And I could have sworn I saw a glint of something suspiciously like moisture in his eye. After the speeches, as the party continued, he walked over to me. He cleared his throat. "Well, girl," he said, his voice gruff as ever. "Suppose you weren't entirely wasting your time after all." He pressed a small, lumpy envelope into my hand. For the ongoingness of it. Inside, I later found a surprisingly generous donation and a little note scribbled on the back of a hardware receipt. "Good job, Maya." The Oakhaven Community Hub, as we named it, thrived. It hosted coffee mornings for seniors, after-school clubs for kids, craft workshops, book groups, even a little cinema club using a donated projector. Mrs. Petrova ran the tea counter like a queen on her throne. Leo and his friends started a band and practiced in one of the side rooms. Mr. Fitzwilliam taught woodworking to a new generation. I still did my deliveries, but now when I rode through Oakhaven, it felt different. The town felt brighter, more alive. When I passed the hub, always buzzing with activity, a warmth would spread through my chest that no package, no matter how important, could ever give me. It wasn't always easy. There were always bills to pay, things that needed fixing. But now, when a problem arose, the community rallied. We weren't just a committee anymore. We were a town that had rediscovered its heart. Sometimes people would stop me on my rounds. "Maya," they'd say, "thank you. Thank you for not listening when they said it couldn't be done." And I'd smile, because I knew it wasn't just me. It was all of us. It was the stubborn hope of a delivery girl, yes, but it was also the quiet kindness of an old lady, the expertise of a retired carpenter, the energy of teenagers, the grudging support of a grumpy shopkeeper, and the collective spirit of a town that just needed a little nudge to remember how to come together. They said, it couldn't be done, but we did, and that, I think, is the best delivery I ever made.